reestablishing that free-flowing river condition, what's going to happen is we're actually going to have more flow in the river. The dam actually serves as a net loss of water from the Ocklawaha River. Take the dam out, or a portion of it out, and what are we going to see? We'll see that pool of water go back into the channel. The surface area of water will reduce. The water loss to the atmosphere will reduce. Spring flow from below the river now will come back. We think from the calculations that have been done, it's been demonstrated through scientific investigations, that the flow of the Ocklawaha River will probably increase on the order of 150 million gallons per day. And it's going to bring back 20 or more springs that are underneath the reservoir today that will begin flowing again. So we'll have more springs to enjoy and celebrate.
So we're talking about improving the condition of 4 different ecosystems, each one of them having great regional significance, and even to an extent global significance. Early on, some of the work that was done at the district while I was Director of Environmental Sciences did give us some concern that there would be impacts due to enrichment with nitrogen in the estuary. But subsequent work over the last 10 or more years, including some very sophisticated modeling work, has shown that the water quality effects would be minimal, negligible in fact. You weigh that against the lift in terms of species diversity and abundance of fish and invertebrates, and clearly I think the scales tipped in favor of doing the restoration. For example, Silver Springs is a first magnitude spring and indeed one of the largest flowing freshwater springs in the world. So that's not a small deal. The St. Johns River is an important estuary for the entire east coast of the United States. For example, the southernmost population of the American shad occurs in the St. Johns River and nowhere else. So the American shad, American eel, other species that migrate between the ocean and the fresh waters historically use the St. Johns River.
We're standing here on the banks of the St. Johns River. The river itself runs 310 miles through the heart of Florida, if you would, flowing right through downtown Jacksonville. This stretch of the river is the estuary. It's where the ocean meets the river, and this is one of the most fertile parts of the river. It's also sort of the last stop as you come up the 310-mile length of the river before the river sort of snakes through Jacksonville and finally ends up emptying into the Atlantic Ocean. Having a healthy ecosystem is paramount to having a healthy economy. And we started looking at the way we have used and abused the St. Johns River for years. The damming of the Ocklawaha is sort of an example of that. By reducing the flow of water into the St. Johns River, we allowed more salt water to come in. Effectively, just east of Jacksonville is an unlimited amount of salt water. And so when you change the flow characteristics of the river, either by stopping water flow through a dam, dredging, changing discharge characteristics by paving over areas, you change the migratory patterns of fish. You change the ecology of the ecosystem. We have watched the salinity of the St. Johns River sort of go deeper and deeper into the river over the years. We've watched all the submerged aquatic vegetation, which is critical to the nursery ground of the estuary, disappear in Duval County. There are no grass beds left in Duval County. And so trying to reestablish some sort of healthy ecosystem is critical as we continue to do development and dredge and pave over areas and fill in wetlands. We need to try to do our best job to restore and mitigate that impact as best we can.
So the St. Johns is really unique and that's one of the few rivers in the world that is primarily fed by spring discharge. So we have a lot of spring water coming out of places like Silver Springs, Wakaiwa Springs, that add spring water into the river. And the Ocklawaha is a spring-dominated tributary, so the Silver River provides a lot of discharge to the Ocklawaha. So that water is being held back by the Rodman. And beyond that, there's a natural timing to river systems discharging to the St. John's. When it rains, it can flood. That floodwater goes into the river system and goes into the St. John's River. The dam changes that natural flow characteristic. So there's not a natural sort of flux of water out of the Ocklawaha into the St. John's. And that can be critical at times of drought. If the water is not coming out of the Ocklawaha, it's not providing water to the St. John's. And I think that's one of the biggest problems we have with this system, is it isn't behaving like a regular river system would. It's behaving like a managed system that it is.
So with reconnecting Silver Springs to the St. John's River and to the Atlantic Ocean, those migratory animals will return. And those not only include mullet and channel catfish, that also includes striped bass, which really relied on the Ocklawaha River and the Silver River as a place for breeding and propagation in the past. Spring-fed rivers are essential for the existence of manatees in and around the Florida Peninsula. And they provide irreplaceable habitat for wintering during cold weather because of the need for a warm water refuge by these manatees.
Restoring natural habitat like the Ocklawaha River and its natural historic springs is critically important for the Florida manatee. Manatees can actually not survive in water colder than 68 degrees for prolonged periods of time, or they can suffer a life-threatening condition called cold stress syndrome if they don't find these warm water sources in time. Due to loss and degradation of natural habitat, 60% of Florida manatees actually now rely on artificial warm water sources during the winter time, such as power plant effluents. And this is unsustainable for the future of the species.
Restoring the Ocklawaha by breaching the dam will benefit wildlife. Species like the Florida black bear, Florida panther, bobcat, wild turkey, and white-tailed deer will have new territory to roam in the corridor between the Osceola and Ocala National Forests. Healthier forests will benefit native birds like the bald eagle, osprey, and wood duck. Fish and other aquatic species will migrate through an open river and access the Ocklawaha's springs.
So the Florida Wildlife Corridor is an attempt to make all Floridians and other people across the globe aware that we still have this opportunity to protect a functionally connected system of wildlife corridors across the state of Florida. So if we restore the river and put back the floodplain forest that used to characterize the area that now where Rodman sits, that it will be a much more functional wildlife corridor than it is today.
When people think about the Ocklawaha River Restoration Project, they often focus on just the river and not the greater ecosystem. Behind us is Little Orange Creek Preserve and Nature Park. This is more than 3,000 acres of conservation lands put together in a partnership with nonprofit organizations and government agencies, including counties and cities, to protect this incredible system. The Ocklawaha River Restoration Area is a critical link in the Ocala to Osceola National Forest, or O2O corridor,